Elizabeth Bathory. Elizabeth Bathory, also known as the Blood Countess, was a Hungarian noblewoman who has been accused of torturing and killing numerous young girls in the late 16th and early 17th centuries. She was born on August 7, 1560, in Nyírbátor, Hungary, to a prominent family that had a long history of political and military influence in the region. Her father, George Bathory, was a soldier and a statesman, and her mother, Anna Bathory, was the sister of the ruler of Transylvania. Elizabeth grew up in a castle in the town of Ext, where she received a private education from tutors. She was known to be a very intelligent and curious child, with a particular interest in science and medicine. However, she was also said to have a cruel streak, and there are stories of her torturing and killing small animals. Elizabeth is said to have had a fascination with blood from an early age, and there are stories of her stabbing her servants and smearing herself with their blood. She married Ferenc Nadasdy, another prominent noble, when she was 15 years old, and they had 5 children together. Nadasdy was a soldier who was often away from home, and Elizabeth took over the management of their estates during his absences. It was during this time that Elizabeth is said to have begun her reign of terror, luring young girls to her castle and torturing and killing them. Elizabeth Bathory is said to have killed numerous young girls, with the exact number of victims being unknown, but believed to be in the hundreds. Her preferred victims were peasant girls from the surrounding villages, whom she would lure to her castle with promises of work or money. Once they were in her custody, Elizabeth would subject them to unspeakable torture, which often involved beating, burning, mutilation, and even cannibalism. Some accounts suggest that she would bite her victims and drink their blood, believing that it would help her retain her youth and beauty. According to the accounts, Elizabeth had a group of accomplices who assisted her in her crimes, including servants and members of the local community. They would help her to capture and torture the girls, and would also dispose of their bodies. There are stories of Elizabeth and her accomplices conducting sadistic rituals and performing horrific experiments on their victims. Elizabeth Bathory's crimes eventually came to light when a Lutheran minister named István Magyari made a complaint to the authorities. Magyari had been visiting Elizabeth's castle on religious business and had witnessed some of the horrific events taking place there. He reported to authorities that he had seen Elizabeth brutally torturing and killing young girls. In December 1610, King Matthias II ordered 2 notaries, András Keresztúri and Moses Zaraki, to investigate the claims against Elizabeth. The notaries interviewed several witnesses and gathered evidence, including the remains of some of the victims found on the castle grounds. As a result of the investigation, Elizabeth was arrested along with 4 of her servants, who were accused of helping her to carry out her crimes. The trial took place in 1611, and although Elizabeth initially denied the charges against her, she eventually confessed to having killed several girls. However, she insisted that she had been acting in self-defense and that she had not intended to kill them. At the trial, Elizabeth's noble status made it difficult for the court to impose the death penalty on her. Instead, she was sentenced to life imprisonment, and was walled up in a small room in her castle, where she spent the rest of her life. Her accomplices were also found guilty and were executed. The veracity of the allegations against Elizabeth Bathory has been the subject of much debate among historians and scholars. While there are numerous accounts from witnesses and accomplices that suggest that Elizabeth was indeed involved in the torture and murder of young girls, it is also important to note that many of the accounts come from sources that may not be entirely reliable or unbiased. Some scholars have suggested that the accusations against Elizabeth were part of a smear campaign orchestrated by her political enemies, who sought to discredit her and seize her vast estates. Others have argued that the allegations were based on rumors and superstitions that were common at the time, and that Elizabeth's behavior may have been exaggerated or distorted over time. Despite the uncertainties surrounding her case, it is clear that Elizabeth Bathory's story has captured the imagination of people around the world and has become a powerful symbol of female evil and madness. While it is important to approach historical accounts with a critical eye and to be mindful of the biases and assumptions that may be present, the story of Elizabeth Bathory remains a fascinating and disturbing part of our cultural heritage. There have been numerous books and movies based on the life and crimes of Elizabeth Bathory. Some of the most notable include books. 1. The Blood Countess, by Andrei Codrescu. 2. The Countess, a novel of Elizabeth Bathory, by Rebecca Johns. 3. Dracula Was a Woman. In Search of the Blood Countess of Transylvania, by Raymond T. McNally and Radu R. Florescu. 4. The Historical Dracula, by Ray Porter. Movies. 1. Daughters of Darkness, 1971. 2. The Countess, 2009. 3. The Legend of Blood Castle, 1973. 4. Eternal, 2004. 5. Bathory, Countess of Blood, 2008.